All right, everybody, the Whoop 4 is finally here. And this is the wearable I've been looking forward to the most this year. And now that I've been using it for close to a month, I can say with confidence that the Whoop 4 definitely does not suck. In fact, I would go as far as to say it is excellent. Whoop has been around now for an entire decade, and over the past 10 years, the Whoop band has gone from an obscure wearable sold and used almost exclusively to professional teams and athletes, to then being available to the public for a cost of $500, of which most users were amateur athletes, to now having exploded in popularity over the past few years to a much more general population for anyone interested in improving their health and fitness. And that popularity only surged higher when it was discovered that Whoop's sensors and data were able to detect early signs of COVID-19 to members who otherwise didn't even yet have any noticeable symptoms. And that is just a quick summary of how Whoop went from being worth $107 million in 2018 to recently being valued at $3.6 billion here in the second half of 2021. Now, what has always been different about the Whoop compared to other smartwatches or wearables isn't just its more minimal screen-free look. Amazon tried that, and well, I don't think it turned out too great, as their newest model coming out, well, has a screen. No, there is something else that I believe has been far more impactful in making Whoop such a success. See, other smartwatches and wearables always seem to emphasize and focus on what you did, like how many calories you burned or how many steps you took. Whoop emphasizes something entirely different. Instead of placing the focus on what you did, Whoop draws your attention to what you should do. How hard of a workout should you do today? How much sleep do you need tonight to recover from it? This change in focus is not only more functional and useful, it's also far more engaging. See, I don't care how many steps I took yesterday. What I care about is how recovered my body is for my next workout based on what I already did this week, how my body is recovering, and what would be the most optimal thing for me to do to see the best long-term results. It is a huge difference. Now, while Whoop's subscription model may turn some people off who'd rather just buy a wearable outright and be able to resell it down the road, I think Whoop, with its new 4.0 model, which makes it better than ever, is worth every cent of the $18 per month that they are asking for. So yeah, Whoop 4.0, it's really good, and I totally recommend it. Now, one of the biggest complaints about the previous Whoop 3.0 was that the accuracy of the heart rate sensors were not on par with other higher end wearables. And having accurate heart rate data is pretty damn important if that is what Whoop is using to base their suggestions and features on. And they seem to have heard the complaints loud and clear, as with the Whoop 4.0, they have quadrupled down by now having 4 times the number of photodiodes and now having 5 LEDs that use green, red, and infrared light, replacing the previous 2 green LEDs, which allows for better accuracy across more skin types and new metrics, including blood oxygen and skin temperature. I compared the heart rate tracking on the new Whoop 4.0 with my Apple Watch and Polar armbands and found Whoop to match up with them very accurately, so at least from what I am able to tell, the accuracy here is more than adequate. The improved sensors provide data that you can view in Whoop's daily health monitor, which tracks 5 metrics, which it gathers at night while you sleep. These metrics are respiratory rate, otherwise referred to as your breathing rate, which is how many breaths you take per minute. And this was actually the metric that people were noticing that gave early warning signs that they might have COVID. See, your breathing rate doesn't change day to day very much, unless of course your body is trying to find ways to get more oxygen. Another metric is resting heart rate, which is how often your heart beats at rest, which short-term increases can indicate fatigue, and long-term decreases can be a sign of improved cardiovascular health. HRV, or heart rate variability, this is the variance in time between beats of your heart, and it is a very good indicator of how prepared your body is to perform at its best. If your HRV is significantly below normal, it may be a sign that your body is not quite ready to take on an especially taxing session. And vice versa, if it's higher than normal, then this might be a great day to change things up, push yourself a little harder, or put in some extra work. Then the 2 new metrics with the Whoop 4.0 are blood oxygen. This is the amount of oxygen circulating around in your blood. And if this number ever drops significantly, that is really good to know, and it's a sign that you may want to seek help from a medical professional. And finally, skin temperature, which is a measurement of your temperature at the surface of your skin. Again, just an indicator that's nice to be aware of to know if you might be coming down with a sickness. And it's really useful to know because if you're coming down with something, you want your immune system to be at its best. And doing a really hard workout is going to temporarily lower your immune system. So it's usually a better idea if you're fighting something off to take a rest day or just take it a little easy. All of this, alongside your daily heart rate metrics and your sleep data, which we'll get more into in a minute, gives the Whoop the information it needs to give you two important scores: your strain score and your recovery score. Your strain score is essentially the accumulation of cardiovascular load you've taken on throughout the day. This is a number that ranges from 0 to 21 and is algorithmic, meaning the higher your score is, the more load it takes to go higher. So even though theoretically 21 is the highest level, realistically, it's actually impossible to hit. Your recovery score is a representation of how well prepared your body is to take on additional strain. This is represented as a percentage from 0 to 100% and is created using data comparing your resting heart rate variability, respiratory rate, and sleep performance compared to your typical number ranges. Based on your recovery percentage, Whoop Strain Coach will give you a suggested strain score to shoot for that day. Now, to be fair, I don't find the Strain Coach to be particularly useful because it's pretty hard to determine what any workout will do in terms of your overall strain score. You can use the Whoop's strain coaching system while you work out, which alerts you when you reach your strain goal during a workout. But as somebody who takes mostly connected fitness workouts, it's not like I'm just going to stop in the middle of a class. But even if the strain coach isn't that functional, I find the strain and recovery scores to be very useful, as it does guide my training in the sense that if I have low recovery, I might choose to take a workout that's shorter or less intense than I would otherwise. Or if my recovery score is higher than normal, I might choose to challenge myself with a workout that is longer or harder than I had previously planned. And then looking back and comparing how all my strain scores are lining up with my recovery in this graph, I do slowly learn if I might tend to do too much when I have too little recovery. And that helps me learn what workout choices I should make to better fit in line with the recommendations. Or I can try to see how I can improve my recovery, which for me means focusing on my sleep. Because my sleep is looking pretty poor. So let's talk about Whoop's sleep tracking and sleep coach. Sleep is by far the most important part of recovery, and Whoop provides pretty in-depth tracking and analysis of your sleep to not only help you get a sense of your recovery, but also help give you sleep recommendations. And with the Whoop 4.0, there has been an additional feature added with a new smart haptic alarm clock. So here, Whoop lets you know how long you actually slept for, as long as how much time you spent awake, in light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. And you can see how many sleep disturbances you're having every night, which I know for many people, they find shocking how often they are awake throughout the night and how much less sleep that leads to. Sleep efficiency, which is a measure of how much time you spend in bed actually sleeping, because it's been shown that spending time in your bed and not sleeping isn't the best thing for your recovery or health. And here again is your respiratory rate, so you can see if there are any sudden changes relative to your typical baseline. So then Whoop also lets you know how much sleep you should try and get the next night. And it breaks this down by your baseline of what you need and how much more you'll need to recover from additional strain and sleep debt, which is added up a bit from the previous few days if you've been undersleeping. Now, this recommended number honestly is extremely unrealistic, especially for me, and I know taking naps will lower the number that Whoop suggests, but I wish Whoop would display a more realistic goal here based on my own personal sleep history. Because a bit more hidden in the app, they actually do show that from the sleep coach, which gives me a much more realistic sleep goal based on if I'm trying to achieve peak recovery, if I want to perform well, or if I just want to get by. And I definitely fall in the category of just wanting to get by when it comes to more sleep. And so based on when I plan on waking up, the sleep coach gives me a recommendation on when to go to sleep and gives me a little push notification on my phone to remind me if I'm staying up too late. And here is where you can set the haptic alarm clock, which is new to the Whoop 4.0. You can set the Whoop to wake you up by vibrating at a specific time once you've reached your sleep goal or when your recovery is in the green. Now, luckily, the Whoop alarm clock is smart enough so that if you are in the green at 3 a.m. in the morning and you typically wake up at 7, it's not going to wake you up at 3, but sometime a little closer to when you would normally wake up. But for me, I prefer just to set the time, and sometimes I'll play around with the sleep goals when I can afford to relax and sleep in a little bit longer. And I do prefer the haptic alarm clock over, say, my iPhone, for example, so that if I do wake up before my wife, I don't wake her up as well. Now, when you do wake up, you can choose to take a quick journal survey with behaviors that you would like to track. And this is one of the coolest features with Whoop because at the end of each month, it'll analyze that data and show you things like how much worse your recovery is on nights that you drink alcohol, or if you're achieving better results by wearing a sleep mask or by staying hydrated. There are a ton of metrics to track here if you would like, and it's super fascinating to see how different behaviors affect your recovery and performance. But unless you enjoy feeling like you're being interrogated every single morning, I suggest you stick to just 2 or 3 things to track at once. So what else is new for the Whoop 4.0? Well, a significantly smaller size for one. They have shrunk the pod here within the Whoop strap by 33%. And it wasn't that the previous Whoop was huge or anything, but I definitely prefer the smaller size just because it does look a little bit nicer to me and it's a bit less noticeable when you're wearing it around. And if I was somebody with smaller arms, I would even be more excited because the previous model did look a bit oversized for some people. Now, to achieve this smaller size, Whoop had to make significant improvements to their battery, which they did. And the Whoop is still capable of lasting 3 to 5 days on a full charge, depending on your activity and how often you're broadcasting your heart rate to other devices. From my testing, it seems like 3 days is more realistic, which is still great, and I'm more than happy with that. There has been some significant improvements to the battery charger here for the Whoop 4.0 as well. One of my favorite features for the Whoop is that you never have to take it off to charge it. You just have to charge the battery pack instead and slide it over the strap to have it recharge the Whoop pod. And there have been 2 changes made to the battery pack. One is that you can now visually tell how much the battery case is charged by tapping it. It'll show a green light if it's fully charged or a red light if it's low. The other change is that the battery pack is now water resistant. Previously, it was fairly common to destroy your battery pack because you forgot it was on and went to a shower or somehow it got wet. But now that it is water resistant, in addition to the Whoop, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. An additional change to the Whoop 4.0 is that they have made it easier to remove the pod from the band, which is nice if you like to switch out different straps. But also this, in addition to its smaller size, allows for something entirely new to the Whoop. And that is the ability to take the Whoop off of your wrist and place it into specifically designed Whoop clothing. So Whoop now makes compression shorts, shirts, bras, and leggings, all of which have pouches to place the Whoop pod. And these pouch placements have been tested with the improved sensors to show that they maintain the accuracy of the Whoop data. And while I don't mind wearing the Whoop on my wrist, and I don't plan on using Whoop clothing all of the time, I think it is definitely useful in certain circumstances. Specifically, if you want to go somewhere, maybe you're going out for the night, and you don't want to be wearing a fitness gadget on your wrist. And whereas before you would just take it off and sacrifice the data for the night, now you don't have to make that trade-off. So as you might know, the Whoop's pricing model is subscription-based. And with the subscription, you not only get the Whoop, but also any upgrades or new models they come out with for the Whoop. With 3 different options, 6 month followed by month-to-month at $30 per month, 12 months up front for $24 per month, and 18 months up front for $18 per month. So essentially $216 per year for the cheapest plan. And while this may seem a bit steep, I think it is well worth it for somebody who will actually use these metrics to help influence what they're going to be doing in their workouts. They also have a new Whoop Pro membership for an additional $12 per month, which allows you to get a new piece of Whoop body clothing or a new band every 3 months, as well as get free shipping and 20% off additional items from the Whoop store. Look, obviously Whoop is just trying to get a little bit more cash here, but honestly, it's actually a pretty good deal if you see yourself buying new bands or clothing in the future, since most of the items that you can get every 3 months are worth a lot more than the $36 you will have paid. Personally, I think they have done a fantastic job with the Whoop 4.0. I think the subscription model and cost are well justified here, especially if they keep coming out with new and improved models every 2 years or so. And so I am happy to be able to highly recommend the Whoop 4.0. If you want to learn more about the Whoop, I have a link in the description below. And if you want to know what my 5 favorite features are, you can check that out here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.